Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. We got a fun 9-game slate here for you on this Monday night to kick off the work week. In this one, we are taking a look at LeBron's hopeful return to Cleveland, taking on the Cavs. My man is questionable, I believe, right now, but we are thinking that he is going to play. Don't know how he would miss this return back to the land. So we'll take a look at some of the best bets in this one for you. Nate does have his great article up on playpicks.com with some best bets and player props in there for you as well. And make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Check out those other couple of videos we have up for you today, including that player props vid. We'll look to kick off the week strong. And head to thelines.com. Make sure you're checking out who is in and out of those lineups all the way up to game time tonight. And as well, checking out that odds checker, making sure you're getting the best juice available out there from all of those bettors and odds makers. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to ftpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for tonight. Nate, let's jump into it.
Yeah, the Lakers not really moving much because LeBron has been listed as questionable every single night for a while. He missed maybe just one game with that sore knee. So they're +6 in Cleveland, and that total also holding pretty tight at 227. 8 other games on this Monday slate. The Blazers are +8 in Detroit. Miami -1.5 at Philly. Interesting game there. We'll have to see if Jimmy Butler plays. The Pelicans without Brandon Ingram +6 at Charlotte. The Jazz are -1.5 at Brooklyn. We break that game down for you. Total at 229 as we speak. The Celtics are -15 at the Thunder. Wizards -4.5 at Rockets. Bulls -3.5 home against the Raptors. And then the Wolves are +3 at the Mavericks. Should be a good battle there. I mean, yeah, I don't think LeBron's going to decide to miss this game with a sore knee. Unless he continues to play his mind games about maybe returning to Cleveland for the end of his career. But if he's out there, you got to expect he's going to be going hard, even though this is the third game in 4 nights for both teams, but that impacts the Lakers a lot more. I expect LeBron to have another good game in Cleveland and in 3 trips back to the land, averaging 40 points per game, shooting 67.7% from the field, and with a 146 offensive rating. So clearly he comes to play. That includes last January, a 46-8-6 line on 19 for 26 field goal shooting. So I'm not willing to take the Cavs to cover 6 points against a potentially possessed LeBron James, but nor am I willing to take the Lakers to cover, as Josh always says, not betting on them with your money, but I will take an over with the Lakers, which has hit in 7 of their last 10. And 2 of those unders hit this exact total, or one over 227, 228 with the Wolves and Spurs. And that Wolves game is key because it was just, they've been embarrassed a lot this season, the Lakers, but this one I think hit kind of harder. The Wolves really twisted the knife a few times between Cat and Pat Beverly, directly calling out LeBron and Russell Westbrook, sort of a real wake-up moment for them, I guess, at this stage in their career that, whoa, are we just getting completely passed by young guns? Well, since then, there were probably some discussions in the locker room, and the veterans and young guys alike have come out with renewed focus. The Lakers have played very well on offense in their last 2. Bounced back with an overtime win over Toronto. But their defense is not at all stepping up. Still a 120 defensive rating in these 2 games, but a 125 offensive rating, scoring 124 points per game, hitting 16 threes at a 41% clip and getting 54 paint points. Russell Westbrook nearly a triple-double in both, back to his standard numbers, really. And even went 6 for 10 from 3 in those games, but his defense still 123 defensive rating. The Lakers are still giving up the most points per game to point guards this season. So enter Darius Garland, who's averaging 26.5 and 11 dimes in his last 7. And you expect Cleveland to just come right back if the Lakers and LeBron start hot. We've talked about this for a while. We've targeted them, and it's basically been money every time in terms of the over with Cleveland because they've had to switch in guys like Lauri Markkanen, and Chetty Osman and Kevin Love. With Jared Allen out, their defensive rating has gone up a lot. They're giving up a ton of production to centers. They gave up a 126 offensive rating to Philly in a bounce back spot for Philly without Allen and Markkanen, he's playing very well offensively with a 133 offensive rating, playing nearly 39 minutes per game in his last 4. But on defense, he's just food. I mean, there were a couple of highlights where Embiid was matched up on him, and it was just Philly was just hunting that matchup. And I think the Lakers can do the same with LeBron, and if they get him on there. The Cavs have won 3 of their last 4 at home, but the defensive rating still not great, 115.5. Offense has actually spiked considerably. They're scoring 5 more points per game at home, 116.5 than the last time, and getting a ton of paint points, giving up a ton of paint points in these last 3 here, 4 straight overs. So I think that the line is still set a little bit low considering where the Cavs are at now, and I don't think anybody's really scared of an over when it comes to the Lakers, as long as they're going to bring enough offense to get to save space to a degree. At this point, is it about moral victories, Josh? About just not getting blown out completely by young teams?
I mean, it could be, yeah. I mean, it also feels like, to be honest, to support the over here, it feels like, LeBron's not shutting it down in a season where if he really was concerned about maybe winning a title next season, maybe he would shut it down a bit more this season. But I think he's way more concerned with getting stats. And so is Russ Westbrook. They're concerned with getting stats. I think they both look at not getting embarrassed at this point as them individually performing well, because this team is not a formidable foe to anybody as a whole team. We've known that from the jump. I mean, to be a solid basketball team, you have to do at least do something well on both sides of the floor. This team can't defend the perimeter. They can't defend the paint. They're worse in the league in terms of defending the paint in their last 7 road games. They've been playing a lot on the road. Actually, 7 of their last 10 games have been on the road, and in those 7 games, as I mentioned, their defensive rating is the 3rd worst. They give up the most points in the paint. They have the 5th worst rebounding team in the league, and they give up the 3rd most defensive rebounds. They give up the 3rd most second chance points to their opponents. As I just mentioned, they're not getting those defensive rebounds, and then they're giving up those points in the putbacks. So I think tonight, despite not having Jared Allen in this game, which if we did, that might actually scare me a little bit more to take the over, because the Lakers are getting to the paint as well. They are getting to the rim and scoring from there and wherever they want in that sense, as LeBron and Russ are attacking. Russell Westbrook does have slightly better numbers in those last 2. We're also just waiting for that dip back to reality for him where he's starting to brick and break the backboard potentially. But at the same time, I do think there's something to that, a little bit of a turnaround for him in terms of at least just doing what he does well, which is, look, stop pulling up and just go and get it, and then getting those double-digit rebounds and assists as well. It's what you really want from him at this point is him looking to distribute a bit more. That is where he's been more effective all the way since back to last year when he was on the Wizards. And you look at the difference in terms of his assists. Obviously, he was a lot more important to the Wizards, but it was a really telling stat that when he got 10 plus assists, the team had a much better record than when he actually scored 25 or more points, which was a really funny thing from Kevin O'Connor at the Ringer that he pointed out. So I think that's a similar case here for the Lakers, where if he's looking to pass, which he has been a lot more as of late, that's good for their offense. At the same time, now we go back to their defense. That's another reason we like the over there, is just their inability to stop anybody anywhere. I just told you what they've been doing in their last 7 road games, in their last 10 overall. Like I said, playing 7 to 10 on the road. They're also playing at the 9th fastest pace, back up to about 100.5 possessions per 100. So yeah, I think there's a lot to like about the over here. It's right back to the Cavs. If this wasn't the Cavs, right? If it was Lakers versus somebody who's still not getting the level of sort of, I guess, respect on offense that the Cavs need, or at least lack of respect on defense that they deserve right now, they're also in the bottom 10 in terms of allowing opponent points in the paint, opponent field goal percentage. That opponent 3-point percentage is still super high for them, up at the bottom 5 in the league over their last 5 home games or so as well. So there's a lot of little sample sizes here over the last 5 to 7 to 10 games between these two teams, both playing on the road for the Lake Show and at home for Cleveland, where you're just going like, man, like these teams can't stop a nosebleed at this point, and they are both pushing the pace up a lot faster in a way that makes you go, all right, sick. We're still getting a ton of value at this total right now. Let's go ahead and hit that, because I also don't like having to pick against LeBron in Cleveland at 6 points. I would consider a Cavs money line in this one, but it's not like the Cavs have really been closing out close games themselves. They did manage to squeeze that one out against the Pistons. But you look at their close games against good teams as of late, like the 76ers and the Heat, et cetera. It's not exactly like they've been a clutch time juggernaut. So I also don't like picking them down the stretch. I think I just go ahead and hit over 227 and feel really good about that.
Yeah, that's the good way to play it. But if you are feeling like you live on Narrative Street, LeBron for 30 plus is plus 300, and LeBron for 35 plus in a win, nearly plus 600 at FanDuel. It's worth combining those two. He's actually averaging 35 in his last 8, and steps it up against the Eastern Conference considerably. 14 of his last 17 versus the East, he's had 30. And the Lakers have gone over 19-9 to the over versus the East at 6 points per game over that total. 7 of their last 8 over. 118 offensive rating, 120 defensive rating in those spots. Interestingly, they're 9-5 with a rest disadvantage against the spread. That's actually their best mark on the season when they have a disadvantage. And they're absolutely dreadful after a win, 8-22 against the spread, but 21-19 after a loss. So there is something there for them after losing to the Wizards here. Yeah. But more importantly, over in 5 of their last 6 after a loss. So yes, I think I'm sticking with that. We're taking an over here. I'm not trusting the Cavs, who have failed to cover in 10 of their last 15 as favorites. Because they're getting a little overvalued in terms of their ability to lock up the way they were early in the season. They can't necessarily shut down anybody. And the Lakers, yes, which you haven't mentioned his name, Anthony Davis, they can't do X, Y, or Z on defense because they haven't had Anthony Davis nearly the entire season, and will not have anybody to protect the paint tonight as well. So, yeah I think plenty of points in this game. Feel good about that.
Yeah, and just to back up a few of the other things we're saying, neither of these teams seem to want to win. The Lakers have failed to cover the spread when they've been on the road as underdogs in 4 of their last 5 games in such situations. So both of these teams are really just sputtering at this point until we get to the playoffs, if the Lakers even make the playoffs. And then just to add to sort of, if you do think Russ's assists are super, relevant to what happens tonight, as I do, in terms of a lot of more points being scored, because he's a lot less likely to turn the ball over at this point than he is brick a shot, to be honest. So I'd rather just have him pass the ball. And he's actually he's recorded 8 or more assists in 13 to 15 against the Cavs, dating back to 4 seasons ago rather. So, every single year he's been playing the Cavs. Obviously they haven't been the same defensive team, but he seems to have some success against them, playing against them a bunch of times as well as a member of the Wizards. So I do think that bodes well for points being scored tonight, and that pace continuing to ramp up for both these teams. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page, and check out those other couple videos we have up for you today on this 9-game slate. And until we see you next, happy betting.